if you haven't heard about Roger Stone lately, then you've probably been living under a rock. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are reacting to the news, of course, that President Trump on Friday commuted the sentence of his longtime confidant, Roger Stone. Democrats are now accusing Trump of abusing his power, while some Republicans are applauding the move, which makes absolutely no sense to Stone. If you don't know who he is, he's a Republican operative. He was convicted of lying to Congress to protect the president's campaign from an investigation into Russian election interference. He was convicted of lying to the investigators about the efforts by the Trump campaign aides to learn about WikiLeaks' plans to release those emails. And the guy joining us with us on the line right now, a co-director of a great flick. It's awesome. It's on Netflix. It's getting rave reviews. I watched it yesterday, and I got to say, they put the work in, and it's fantastic. It's called Get Me Roger Stone, and the co-director joins us right now. His name is Dan Dimauro. Dan, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Sure, appreciate it. Love the movie. I want to start by asking you this. What made you guys decide to write this movie? Explain to me the process and how long it took you to put this thing together.
Well, the film came out in 2017, shortly after Trump had been inaugurated, but we actually started making the film in late 2011, about five and a half years before it actually came out. And at that point, Roger Stone was kind of at a low point in his life. He was kind of running low-level dirty tricks in local elections, and had really was kind of like the down-and-out dirty trickster rather than his past when he was close advisors to many Republican presidents and their campaigns. So what we found interesting about him is that he embraces infamy, and he likes to be the villain, and he very much revels in kind of his dastardly deeds over the years.
Yeah.
And we wanted to tell the story of how our modern politics has sort of been degraded over the years through telling Roger Stone's story, because as you learn in the documentary, Roger Stone started his career in politics at the age of 19 when he worked for President Nixon's re-election campaign and was swept up in the Watergate scandal.
Before we get to the actual laws that Roger Stone has broken, let's just talk about Roger Stone, the human being. You guys talk a little bit about this in the documentary, but, I mean, I could just roll off some tweets. I mean, this is a guy who's shown the white power sign before. We've seen it in pictures. He's also, in some tweets, called certain members of the media a stupid Negro. I think he said that in regards to Roland Martin, if I'm not mistaken. He's also called some commentators on CNN fat Negroes. He's used the term muff diver, elitist C-word. He said die bitch to some people and some members of the media. This is a man who, in the course of his career, is a known racist and bigot. Can you just talk, before we get to the actual laws that were broken, and just the human being, or lack thereof, that is Roger Stone, and the way you spoke about it in this documentary?
Well, yeah, as I was saying, he likes to be that villain. You'll see that the first line he has in our movie, he says, "My name is Roger Stone, and I'm an agent provocateur."
Right.
And one of the last lines of the film, he says that he revels in your hatred. And this has kind of been his M.O. He's always been this kind of dark artist, this backroom, behind-the-scenes manipulator who Jeffrey Toobin describes in our documentary as kind of the sinister Forrest Gump of American politics, because he always pops up in these key moments in our political history and always has some kind of shady M.O. So that's why we thought he was an interesting character, and why he would actually let a bunch of liberals make a film about him. But certainly his rhetoric is beyond the pale, and he sort of lives his life by what he calls Stone's rules, which are these maxims that he's created to kind of win at politics. And it's basically treating politics as blood sport. It's win at all cost, scorched earth, do anything to win. And that's the political philosophy that he taught to Donald Trump ever since he was the first person to suggest to Trump that he run for president all the way back in 1987, and he shaped his political philosophy over those years until the perfect storm came together, the country changed, and those hardball tactics of being very divisive and stoking anger, fear, and hatred came at the right moment to propel Trump into the White House.
He is Dan Dimauro, the co-director of a great documentary on Netflix that I just watched last night. It's fantastic. Tell you everything you need to know about Roger Stone. It's called Get Me Roger Stone. All right, so Dan, I want you to react to this. As you probably are aware, Roger Stone did his first interview recently since Trump commuted his sentence. He appeared on the Sean Hannity show, and I want you to listen to his reaction when asked about Tucker Carlson, because he claims that Tucker Carlson helped him. Just have a listen to this, and then I want you to react to it.
I have to really single out your Fox News colleague, Tucker Carlson. He took up the cudgels early. He stayed on this case with every twist and turn, wasn't afraid to take on the judge, laid out the jury question. It encouraged me when I got discouraged. He's a man of incredible loyalty, and he's a great friend. He may be the best friend a man can have. So my hat's off to him, and also Congressman Matt Gaetz from Florida, who I hope to live long enough to see in the White House.
Dan, what is your reaction to that?
Well, certainly Stone and Tucker have been friends since the 90s, and Tucker gave us an interview for our film. He definitely was one of the biggest cheerleaders for setting Roger Stone free, along with Congressman Matt Gaetz, along with Sean Hannity. They really took this strategy to frame Roger Stone's prosecution as Trump's persecution. We wrote an op-ed in the New York Times this weekend that kind of laid out our perspective on Stone's commutation, and we believe that, you know, Trump was kind of has his back up against the wall. He's always went to Roger Stone for political advice. He's been his political guru since the early 80s. He has more experience in presidential campaigns probably than every single one of Trump's advisors combined. So Trump commuted his sentence because Tucker correctly framed it in Trump's mind that it was an extension of justifying the Mueller witch hunt, as he would call it. And if Stone spent a day in prison, that would mean that the Mueller investigation was justified. And then additionally, that Trump's campaign is in the tank, and he wants the advice of his longtime friend of 40 years.
Isn't it interesting, Dan, that you look at people like Michael Cohen, and in no way, shape, or form am I going to sit here and defend Michael Cohen, because I also think he's a scumbag. But isn't it interesting that Michael Cohen had to go back to jail recently? You've got the Michael Avenattis of the world, and I'm not defending Michael Avenatti, but he's being treated like a terrorist, or has been, while being put behind bars. You look at all these people that have gone against Donald Trump. Those have opposed him, those that have tried to stand up to him, and those that have maybe turned on him. And you look at the way that they've been treated over the course of the last couple of years, as opposed to somebody like Stone, who obviously blatantly lied. He belongs behind bars. You know, don't you find that interesting? And why don't people speak up a little bit more about this?
I think you are hearing people speak up, and now you see that it's not just the Democrats. You have some Republicans like Mitt Romney calling out this sort of miscarriage of justice. But it was also basically everyone in the White House, according to reports. Not one person in Trump's inner circle
that's true.
Advised him to commute Roger Stone's sentence. It was all on his own volition. And, you know, Trump and Stone, they both kind of have this kind of gangster mentality to them, and Trump was loyal. He wasn't going to be a stoolie. He wasn't going to rat on his boss. And you know, Trump rewards that loyalty. You know, over the years, 40 years of their friendship, they've had a lot of kind of fallings out. And they've had some public spats, and Stone's, not afraid to stand up to Trump in a way that I think some people in his circle that are just completely deferential to him. And Trump really values his political advice.
Yeah, no question about that. I want to go back to Roger Stone and his statements on Sean Hannity, if I may. I do find it interesting that when people do horrible things, they've said horrible things in their life, and they continue to do so, they always like to turn to God and talk about religion. Well, Roger Stone is no different, as you know, Dan. So when appearing on Sean Hannity, he talked about God. Have a listen to this.
I really want to thank God, because I was literally hours away from being sent to a COVID-infested prison in violation of the current Bureau of Prisons and DOJ policies, in violation of every precedent in the country where people going to jail or in jail were asking for compassionate release, and in every case it was granted. I'm 67 years old. I've had a lifelong problem of respiratory problems. I was facing what I really believed was a near-death sentence.
What do you make of that, Dan?
It certainly is a trope for criminals facing their punishment to all of a sudden find Jesus. But, he is standing firm with that. But I don't think that necessarily means he's a changed man. I think he is going to roll out all of his hardball tactics, and it has been confirmed. He's been saying in interviews that he's going to do everything within his power to campaign for the president and do his best to get him reelected. And basically his arsenal of tactics, I'm not sure Jesus would approve of.
No, I don't think Jesus would approve of that either. I don't speak for Jesus, but I think we all could agree on that one. Again, he's Dan Dimauro, co-director of the Netflix hit Rave Reviews. I watched it yesterday. It's awesome. It's called Get Me, Roger Stone. Everything you need to know about Roger Stone. That there's no question about that. So you mentioned a little bit, Dan, about some Republicans that are speaking out, and you're absolutely right about the White House, too. All reports are saying that everybody in the White House, was not okay with what Donald Trump did as far as this is concerned. But you have Adam Schiff, who's not a very big Donald Trump supporter, as you know. He said Stone lied and intimidated witnesses to hide Trump's exploitation of the Russian hack of his opponent's campaign. You mentioned Mitt Romney as well. He called this unprecedented, historic corruption. Why is it that you think that so many Republicans out there, now there are some that are speaking out, but why is it you think that there are so many Republicans out there that are afraid to speak out? Do you think deep down they know this was the wrong thing to do and they're just afraid because they don't want opposition of Donald Trump? Or do you think that there are actually some Republicans out there like the Matt Gaetzes of the world that think Trump did the right thing? What do you think?
Well, going against his, all the best judgment of his advisors, I think, it shows that he was kind of going out on a limb, and it was really his kind of diehard base who supported this move by the president to commute Stone's sentence. But, of course, the problem with Trump and his campaign right now is he's the Svengali. He has his base, and no matter what, 35% of the country at minimum is all behind the president and think he could do no wrong and he's the greatest president ever. Those are the people who cheer the president for freeing Roger Stone. It's just that his problem is not appealing to those who love him already. His problem with his reelection is appealing to the moderates and people who might have some moral quandaries about his conduct and how he's acted as a president. So it's interesting to think about why he would make this calculation to kind of throw red meat to the base and then alienate himself with more moderate Republicans, centrists, independents, or even center-leaning Democrats, or classically, center Democrats. Basically, just pissed off at anyone besides his base. But in our government today, Trump just has complete control over the Republican Party. It really is no longer the Republican Party. It is the Trump Party, and he has extreme sway over the congressional districts with which he won big in 2016 and will win big again this year. So if any politician in Washington goes against him, most of them in those extremely conservative districts are basically just, writing them a ticket back home from Washington.
Yep. Dan, I guess this would be my last question for you. I mean, I've said myself, usually, not all the time, but blatant racists usually hang out with racists. I have attacked Tucker Carlson. As you know, he's been in the news the last couple of weeks. Tucker Carlson has said some misogynistic, racist, atrocious things in his career. And obviously, Roger Stone is no different. I'm sure you would agree with that. Do you think that the fact that a guy like a Tucker Carlson and a Roger Stone have been so tight and are such great friends, doesn't that speak volumes about both of them? You are who you hang out with. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I got to know Roger Stone very well over the 5.5 years we made the documentary. And me and my co-directors sometimes joke that, like, we got to know him better than you get to know some of your closest friends, because you don't sit your closest friends down in a chair for hours at a time and just interview them about every detail of their life.
Right.
And, there's a lot of evidence that Roger Stone as an individual, does not hold, racist ideas, but then you just see his actions and how he associates with racist alt-right groups like the Proud Boys, and how he's best friends with Tucker Carlson, and just promoting an ideology for Trump to ascend to the presidency that's based upon fear, race baiting, demonization of immigrants, etc. And to me, that's worse than not personally holding racist feelings on an individual level, because he has a voice that is amplified, and as our movie shows, since the 70s, he's had an enormous impact on our politics for the worse, whether we like it or not.
Couldn't agree with you more. Well, let me say this, Dan. I really appreciate your work on this movie, Get Me Roger Stone. It's a must-watch, and great job doing it. Appreciate you taking some time to join us, my friend, and keep up the great work. Look forward to your next film, okay?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you bet it. You bet it. That's Dan Dimauro, co-director of Get Me Roger Stone on Netflix. Why don't we try to squeeze in a couple quick calls before we go to break? Why don't we go to Steven, 702-257-5396. Steven, you're up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Yeah, Brian.
Yes, sir.
Very interesting interview. I'll have to take the follow-up response to it and see what I come up with.
It's a good flick. It's a good movie.
I heard some of the things about the trial.
Mm-hmm.
And jury foreman, is my understanding, I would love to have asked Dan the question. The jury foreman is a devout Democrat. Mm-hmm. She was questioned by the judge whether she had any prejudicial feelings towards anybody there. She said no. Then they located on her website how much she hated Donald Trump and Roger Stone.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't sound like she was totally honest either.
Well, I can't speak to that because I don't have – the truth of the matter is that I don't have the specifics to that. But here's what I do know. We know this for sure. Roger Stone lied. He lied to the FBI. He covered up for the President of the United States. Now, I can talk about the horrible things Roger Stone has said in his life on social media. You're not going to get arrested for that. You know, he cited a researcher from a Holocaust denier who blamed a Jewish plot on 9/11. Roger Stone has a history of using the white power sign. He called Roland Martin a fat Negro and a stupid Negro on social media. He also called Allen West an arrogant, know-it-all Negro Republican nutcase. Make no mistake about it, folks. I don't care what you think about Donald Trump or Roger Stone. The bottom line is he's a blatant racist white supremacist. And I believe that white supremacist racists usually hang around other white supremacist racists like Tucker Carlson. Roger Stone belongs behind bars, period. And the only reason why he is not going to jail is because of Donald Trump. That is the only reason. What else do you want me to say here? That is the reason why Roger Stone is out. Now, the defense I hear from Republicans, some of those that are dopes, and there are some smart ones out there, but there are some dumb ones, just like there are dumb Democrats out there. The response I hear from dumb Republicans or biased buffoonery Republicans is that, well, you know what? Donald Trump didn't break the law. So because he didn't break the law, that means what he did isn't wrong. That is absurd. That is ridiculous. Listen, I've said for years that presidents shouldn't have the right to grant clemency towards anybody. There shouldn't be any such thing as a pardon. Right or wrong, it shouldn't exist. But this is absurd. This is the definition of corruption. What more do you want me to say?